Hey, so just a few words about this really underappreciated Jean Rollin film from 1980, The Night of the Hunted, at last available in this definitive edition from Powerhouse Indicator. The Night of the Hunted is, to me, possibly the purest Jean Rollin film experience there is, in the sense that it's accessible to those who don't give a toss about medieval castles and vampires. Jean Rollin is more than that. Jean Rollin is drama and human emotions, and no other film illustrates his capacity at directing actors better than this film, in particular because it had a very, very troubled history. The production of Night of the Hunted was sketchy, and the film was made under harsh and stressful conditions with no money. And the cast was basically actors only known for adult films. So to Rollin's credit, he literally manages to draw such emotional performances out of them and give them exposure outside adult films, which is really incredible. And the film has a very strong and specific sense of place. It's situated in this architectural ensemble, which is striking and has this retro futuristic aspect to it now. So this is really I think the signature aspect of this particular film is because it's in this very definitive period urban context of when in the 60s and the 70s the architects all over the world were going mad and were getting money to build. Some people say these are monstrosities, some people say these are gorgeous examples of, kind of more modernist architecture. And the film is basically a very stripped down genre film. It's really interesting if you can sort of test a director if you take away their favorite toys away from them. Can they still deliver? And I think Jean Rollin really acquits himself so well with Night of the Hunted. There are no tracking shots. There is no fairy tale. There are no props which would indicate it's a fairy tale, but it's still, if you look at the story, the characters, we don't know which college they went to, we don't know their favorite food or their greatest ambition. We're just given enough information so that we can anchor ourselves emotionally in this story. And it becomes a fable, it becomes a fairy tale for grown-ups about basically people who lose memory and are dependent on each other's emotional generosity to make it through the night. And it's a very lonely, kind of a dangerous world. Rollin conjures up with just a wide-angle lens and not even seemingly, just a few lights. And like I said, they didn't have a track to lay, so there are no tracking shots. There's a few bumpy handheld shots. There is absolutely amazing music by Gary Sandeur. I'm not familiar with this composer's other work, but the film just opens on this night driving scene, which is so good, and just the combination of the visuals with the saturated yellows of the headlights and that music, it literally, bam, and you're in the story. I think this is one of the easiest to get into films from Jean Rollin. It opens on this classic trope of a thriller or a hardboiled film on a woman running through the night, harking back to so many classics, even including Kiss Me Deadly from Aldrich. And when you see Brigitte Lahaie just run into the frame and she's frightened, she's wearing this billowing nightgown and it's pouring with rain, so it's just incredible. Unlike other Rollin films, there is less, also, I think there are less overt references to surrealism, like quotations, and it's somewhat more sparse, so anyone can watch it and you don't feel like you are not able to crack the culture codes set up with the director. I think that's another plus. There is a little bit of violence and it's dished out sparingly, but it has major impact as well in this film. So because the characters are given enough build-up, then this violence pays off with so much more impact, which really makes it a standout film among Rollin's genre films. I'm very privileged because I think The Night of the Hunted was my second Roland or third, and I basically got round to his vampire films later. So I first saw Grapes of Death, Night of the Hunted, Living Dead Girl, Zombie Lake, and The Iron Rose, none of which feature vampires. It's a very special case where I personally feel like reducing Roland to just the vampire lore is a bit unfair to him. What about the outliers? Films like Sidewalks of Bangkok, or this movie Killing Car, all those films. The Night of the Hunted is definitely an excellent example of what was still achievable in the crisis years of European genre cinema. The production year was 1979, when a lot of financing was dwindling and the industries, whether in France or in Italy, were tottering because we were on the cusp of the 80s, where the blockbuster would take over the culture of having a massive opening weekend, and the films generally started to rely more on the levels of technical artistry, which was out of reach for typical low-budget authors such as Jean Roland. And it's really incredible that he managed to deliver such a compact yet effective piece on such a dismal budget. So a film to see and a film to discover. Watch The Night of the Hunted and go for the Indicator Powerhouse edition. That's the best this film has ever sounded or looked.